Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another episode of Legacy Leaders. I am Scott McMeans. Today, I am joined by Dan Esposito of DE Bottom Line Consulting. Pretty cool conversation about to happen because he's got a really interesting background, a lot of good stuff to teach. And as we get into this, I'm all for it, man. Let's turn the microphone and camera over to Dan, have him introduce himself, tell us his story, and why is he so good at what he does, and why do people like to work with him? Well, let's let him tell us. So, Dan, microphone, camera, yours, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good morning. My name is Dan Esposito, founder and CEO of The Bottom Line Consulting. That's our DBA, formerly DE Bottom Line Consulting. We've been in business for about 9 years. We are a cost containment and tech procurement company. We've helped our clients across the country save in excess of $5 million. And our story is it's not indifferent to a lot of people out there. We were working for a company, kind of outgrew our space. There was a little bit of tensions rather working for folks, and so I bounced from one industry to the next. And next thing I know, I found myself in a this the grass is not greener type of situation. And 2 weeks before my wedding, I decide, hey, to hell with it, I'm leaving. So on a flight to Mexico, my wife is like, okay, so what are you gonna do? I said, we'll figure it out. So I took a pad similar. I'm an old school pen and paper, so like a moleskin. And I just started jotting down what I could potentially do. And I came from the imaging industry where I spent about 8 years. And it just got to the point where, in order to do well, one, you had to navigate management changing your comp plans on you. And two, it got to the point where if you wanted to do well, it seemed like you had to take advantage of clients. And that's
Yeah.
a kind of a myriad of a few things. One thing that I'm really grateful today is having no geographic restrictions versus working for a big manufacturer. We were limited in scope to 100 accounts or certain zip codes, which for me, relationships typically trump all, right? I tell people if you have an opportunity to do business with your friend, all things equal, you're going to do business with your friend. If
Yeah.
all things are not equal, you still want to do business with your friend. So it was one of those situations where you couldn't get everything you wanted, and you come to the realization that in order to get what you want, you just kind of have to build it. And so we came up with a plan. Hey, if we could advocate for customers uh, and spearhead their procurement in areas that they're not really certain of what they're doing, there's a value there, right? We're connecting a gray area. So this is what you know, this is where you need to get to, and there's this area, and that's where we're providing value. And so we wrote a business plan. We reached out to some of our older clients and said, "Hey, boy, I got a story for you. I think I could save you a decent amount of money." They're like, "But didn't you just sell us?" I'm like,
Yeah.
I did, but here's an opportunity, kind of, brought us to see what we could do for you. And those three clients, it went swimmingly. Everything went well. And a lot of times you're actually dealing with the same manufacturer you started with, just at significant savings. So we started specifically in the print space. And I think print and print infrastructure, copiers, those maintenance agreements, I tell people on a list of 100 things for an IT person, it's 101. It's like, get it out, get it done, get it out of my way. I don't have to deal with it. We got more important things to do.
Right.
And so we went, and for probably about the first 3 years, we were just dedicated to that. And you start saving people a decent amount of coin, and then they're interested in saying, "Hey, Dan, where can you help us?" And so that kind of led to us looking into internet service providers, telecom, UCaaS, managed service providers. I mean, we've done a lot of things. Even one of our buddies, if you can imagine, in the construction field, we helped him source material just because he didn't have the time. And so a lot of times when we're talking to prospective clients, we're saying, if you're the guy in the room that doesn't have enough hours in a day, you're saying you can't even complete your day-to-day work, how are you going to do something as critical as procurement or purchasing for your company and get the results you want? And so that's sort of our value add is that we come in, we're vendor agnostic. We're going to strip things down to the chrome and deliver a solution for you guys that's going to have savings. And we're performance based. If we don't save anyone any money, they don't pay anything.
Okay. That's risky, right? Being a performance-based business. obviously you're confident in what you do. You're able to do it.
Sure.
So there's no challenge there for you. How do you get people to buy onto that? Because I'm assuming there's a level of skepticism with no way you're going to take a job that you only get paid when you get performance. You're going to want to get paid somehow. So what's the hook, right?
Yeah, I mean that is the hook. It's binary by nature. I think you talk to people, are they interested in savings? More often than not, people are going to say, yeah, we're interested in savings. But when they talk about savings, what are they sacrificing? Efficiencies, relationships, etc. Um, so we're front loading it again with the risk, right? We're going to do the audits for you, which is always inclusive, right? In order for us to understand, we have to have a good barometer of what we're dealing with, the landscape. And I think that's probably the first area where we see a disconnect. People don't often know what they're spending.
Mm,
And so we want to be as diligent as possible on the front side. And that's sort of where we require the most amount of input. And it's our biggest bottleneck. People are interested. Hey, you can save us money. Great. We're willing to pay you a percentage. And then when it comes to, put rubber to the road, it's like, I'm not getting you the invoices. I'm not getting you the contract. So it kind of stops us in our tracks. And then you have to remind people, hey, listen, you're halfway there. You've made up in your mind that you want to do this. Just do the little bit of legwork we're asking for you. And then it becomes almost as frictionless as possible. Because once we have the information and we know what they need, we're going to market for them, provided they want to move forward, right? Because they get the audit and they get to get the deliverables. Hey, this is where you might be overspending. This is where we see opportunity for consolidation, et cetera. And at that point, it's like, do you want us to go to bat for you? We've never had someone get to that point and say, no, no, we're
yeah.
okay. Um, and so I think we gain a lot of trust and our credibility in that first part. And that's the hook. Hey, we'll do a free audit for you. Okay. But the hook is to eventually prove that we know what we're talking about more so than you do, right? So if someone is buying technology every 3 to 5 years and we're in the weeds every day, who's going to know more? It's a
Right.
rhetorical question, obviously. Um, and so
Okay.
we know the facets of those business segments where they get over on folks, kind of like the dirty tricks that are played
Mhm.
within the industries.
It's an interesting conversation I've had earlier today, a different opportunity to talk to somebody. We were talking about the value proposition and how does this come into play? And it boils down to expertise is something you need to pay for because it saves you an exponentially larger sum of money down the road, right?
Sure.
As you're pointing out, somebody doesn't have the time to go through the weeds and do all this work because they have other fish to fry. They're trying to run a business, they're trying to do what they need to do for their department, what have you. They don't have the time to get into the weeds. You do. And again, your knowledge and your willingness to go to bat for somebody is based on what you know in the industry. So instead of trying to figure it out on your own, use somebody that knows exactly what the information, like where are the bodies buried? You know this information,
Right.
right? So you might as well go to somebody that can help you. And if I save $100,000 and I have to pay you X percent of that, well, as long as it's not 99% I have to pay you back, I'm making money no matter what, right?
Yeah. And that's sort of the caveat is that depending on how you look at it, it's a free service, right? You didn't have the savings to begin with. We've reallocated some of your budgets. So we've had an identity crisis because people are like, oh, well, you sell copiers, you sell telecom, you sell like, no, no, no. We simultaneously represent everyone, but represent no one, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. And so we can work with whomever you want, and we have the luxury of saying, hey, who's on the blacklist? Who's done wrong by you in the past that you don't want to consider? And to take that a step further, hey, if you worked with XYZ company 5 years ago, well, guess what? XYZ company has changed their tune. They brought a lot of people on board, right? A lot has changed from their organization 5 years ago. You sure you don't want to give them a shot? Um, these are the kinds of conversations that we can have with people. But again, to the point being, you know, there is a bit of expertise involved. It's not just us ourselves. We have plenty of partners, hundreds of them,
Hmm.
as in fact. And depending on what you're looking for, there's always a win there. We try to have the culmination of price and terms. We always say that terms are more valuable or more important than price. If someone is in an agreement and they can't get out of it, it doesn't matter how good your price is. or if someone's in an agreement and they can't get service, doesn't matter how good your price is. And
Right.
so we tell people we want to work within the cross section of folks that are willing to give us the terms we want, willing to service us, and willing to kind of coexist in the terms that matter for our end users. So they're kind of giving a bit of a length of rope to earn that business, but we don't have a tremendous amount of turnover. I think once we place a vendor, they're pretty good about sticking it out.
Yeah. And the way I'm reading this in, Dan, is the partnerships that you form are key, but they're constantly changing because the information and the abilities are constantly changing. Like you said, there's organizations that bring new people on, there's organizations that let certain people go. So there's a constant flux in what's going on. And the key to what you do is your thumb is on the constant pulse of the industry and you know the people and the details that matter. So again, tapping into your resource, which is the expertise of knowing the market, is exactly what the value proposition is for what you bring to your clientele. Is that a great way of summing that up?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think
Okay.
you've probably done a better job than 99% of people I speak with.
Well, that's fine. I just love the idea of, you're willing to put your reputation on the line. You're willing to put your revenue on the line to say, I'm not going to get paid until I produce. And when I do, all right, now we're going to keep working together because it's going to be a constant opportunity to save some money. But the relationship has always got to be the core at the core, right? Because without the relationship, you don't have the like, know, and trust of somebody to keep working with you.
Yeah,
But that comes with you told me I could save some money, and you did it. Man, I love you. I don't necessarily like you. I love you now. Could you save you some money, right?
sure. Yeah,
Now,
I wish people were as receptive. You're not kind of, I don't know that I've ever been applauded in such respect. Like, hey, man, we love you. I think people are happy. I think in many respects, people are, what have you done for me lately? Even if you deliver $1 million
yeah,
in savings, they're just like, it's a matter of perspective. I try, in the beginning, I used to get bent out of shape. It's like, hey, we just saved you $400,000. And they're, reaching their hand out. Hey, you want to do this for a foundation? And at this point, it's just like, we can help someone. We're happy to pat ourselves on the back, frankly. A job well done is a
yeah,
job well done. Someone doesn't necessarily have to appreciate what you do. So long as they, cut the check, we're all happy. I believe, everyone could win. We win because we add a new client. Our vendors win because they have a new, you know, a new vendor relationship. And then our client wins because they have savings. So it is a trifecta. And if we're not able to get to that like three-tiered winning, it would never work. Just wouldn't.
that's a good point. Explain three-tier winning as you see it from your perspective, so the audience understands where you're coming from.
Yeah, I think some people believe in a zero sum, right? If someone wins, someone loses.
Yeah.
I think that's myopic in a sense. It's like when I'm putting together pricing for a client, right? My end user, and I go to a vendor, they're giving me pricing that's sustainable for them, right? They're
Hmm.
going to be able to bring on a client at that price. The pricing I'm going to present to my client is something that's going to hopefully, hasn't happened yet, but it's going to save them money. And we're putting them together. And so I'm never asking someone to go above and beyond saying like, hey, lead your business, for a chance to sit at the table with X, Y, and Z company, you need to be losing money. That's not fruitful for anyone. Nor are they going to be able to live up to the SLAs that we write, the terms. And so when I say win, 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 I mean we're winning because we're saving our clients. So it's another badge, right? Another person we could talk about, another case study. Our clients are winning because they're saving money and they've got a new vendor relationship. And obviously the vendor wins because they have a new logo. So that's
Yeah, no,
our win-win-win.
no, I appreciate you going through the detail because I think a lot of it is very myopic, and that I have to win so somebody else is losing, and that's a weird relationship or weird mindset to have because there's so much opportunity. There's no reason for somebody having to lose.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of I'm going to exchange my goods and services for a price. If we both agree this is something we can do and it's sustainable, by all means, let's do it. If not, we have to renegotiate terms, and nobody wants to ever renegotiate terms after the fact. So let's put our best foot forward, and we both get a chance to win. I like
Sure.
that approach to it. I like
Yeah, one
what you
thing I
do.
should mention, Scott, sorry, is that there's a lot of consultants out there. A lot of them are CapEx. Hey, we're going to save you a boatload of money. You're going to pay us a boatload of money up front. I think one of the differentiators are we've taken an OpEx model. So even if we saved, I mean, we've saved an individual client over $1 million, right? And we're capturing the percentage. So let's just say it was $250,000. They're not paying that up front. Whereas a lot of other consultants, they want to,
Okay.
crash out and run away. Um, Implementation is actually the beginning of our journey because then we're doing contract management for them. So on the front end, it's purchasing, procurement, getting a good understanding and grasp of what they're spending. And then it's implementation, and then it's contract management. So it's kind of like full cycle from soup to nuts. Because again, if they're not saving money, or even better, maybe what we've given them, they end up utilizing the equipment more, utilizing the licenses more. So they've
Yeah.
actually increased the delta, of which we're not going to get paid on that increase, right? If you start using these services substantially more, you are just creating further savings for yourself that you get to, accumulate. But we make it so that it's appetizing and appealing to our clients. The one thing we realize is obviously recently with inflation is kind of eating into it. So we're balancing out some, new ways to make that a little bit more palatable on our end. Um, but we've had clients that are like, hey, write us 48 invoices. I send them to their AP person, and they're like, this is a nightmare. Can we just cut you a check? I'm happy to do it. Um,
Right.
but again, I think when people are like, hey, you're going to have to pay this $250,000 in bite-sized chunks, they feel much better about it and it doesn't restrict their cash flow.
Yeah, and I see this as a model that says, all right, you're going to pay as the savings come, not right away, right? So every time an invoice is cut, it was supposed to be just a $10,000 invoice. Now it's only an $8,300 invoice. All right, you pay me off the savings you just had come through that renegotiated contract. I would imagine it's a much more logical, easier on the checkbook way to do it, but it also keeps you engaged for a longer period of time. So when there are issues and or challenges, you can step in and provide the assistance, like you said. After the procurement stage is over, you have your implementation. Now you're into a full-blown contract management where you're
Yep,
actually helping them beyond the original two steps, which was procurement and implementation. So that's a really good business model because it keeps you engaged.
it does.
And the relationship keeps going because, as I said, one of the things I wrote down here was it's a free service, right? Because you're finding the savings that a customer always had but never knew were there. So you're exposing them to the opportunity. They want you to stick around because you're probably going to find more.
And that's the other facet of it is that you have these 3 to 5 year terms, and I use that loosely, right? I think 98.9% in the print side do 5 year terms. How much does technology change, right? The cost of technology has been driven down, right, as it's being
Yeah.
adopted. So even if we saved you a boatload of money the first time, that doesn't mean there's going to be no savings the next time. And what we've done for our legacy clients is we sort of have a master agreement that if I'm managing your contract, we're just going to, do the renewal for you. And so, a perfect example, we saved a client like $100,000 on their central reprographic department. And then the next time we did it, we saved them 40,000. Well, when we saved them the $100,000 the first time, we didn't foresee that there was going to be 40,000 savings the next time. It's just the dynamic of how the industry changed. It was able
Yeah.
to change that. And it was a very much like for like scenario. We didn't change things. We didn't drop the quality, nothing like that. So, sometimes you're getting all the blood out of the stone only to realize, hey, man, things have changed. The industry is changing. This is how it's going to work for your benefit. This is a
Yeah.
similar or an odd scenario, I should say, where they ended up switching vendors. They've been just as happy. Again, that's just how it works. If people want to
Uh,
save money, then we're there.
Okay, this is what I'm envisioning this coming from a guy that's been in operations for a number of years. You constantly have cost savings and profitability and process management initiatives going on in your business. And if you don't have the people on your team to do all those things all the time and constantly have this thing running, why not outsource the opportunity to have somebody who's been there, done that, knows this marketplace inside and out, and they stick around for 3 to 5 years to help you manage a contract? What a great business model. What a great opportunity to have a business step into. something that they can benefit from without having to exhaust the resources internally to have that done. And in turn, those resources inside, go find another project to work on because we got this one taken care of, right?
Sure.
So you think about the exponential nature of what you're doing is the team of people have the opportunity to go work on something else while you and your team are working on this cost savings initiative. How
Yeah.
much more productivity do you get out of that business? How much more efficiency will be bled out? Man, that's a really good way of doing it. And so I would suggest your services go beyond just the savings. It's increasing the efficiency and productivity of the business overall because you're giving them that latitude to go do it, you know?
Listen, you're preaching to the choir here. I think you have a great grasp on it. It's funny. I believe you have a glass half full perspective, understanding my
Yeah.
business. Um, some of the things we hear is like we're trying to take people's jobs. And I try to tell people, listen, I don't want to be an IT. I don't want to be a procurement for someone
No.
else. Maybe procurement as a service or some sort of retainer fee potentially, but even then, it's like I try to justify it and tell people, hey, I have a bookshelf. Um, you have 1,000 books that you have to buy, right? Imagine
Yep.
day in and day out. And those books really are, hey, you got to buy toilet paper, you got to buy paper towels, you got to buy staples, you got to buy staplers, you got to buy office furniture, you have to buy computers. I'm saying, man, we're really good at like these 4 books, right? Let me get these 4 books and just help you. And by virtue of doing that, we're opening up budget so that you get additional books. Hey, what's
Hmm.
this doodad, right? Every company has a wish list. And we try to tell people when I save a company $100,000 a year, that's $100,000 they can allocate however they want. Um, and I think you had mentioned it's like this is an opportunity to kind of take something off your plate. And in the
Hmm.
beginning, when we were, in the beginning parts of our company, we didn't have the luxury of doing it. So I wasn't necessarily drinking my own Kool-Aid in the sense that, hey, I'm a
Yeah.
sole proprietor. I have to do the marketing because I don't have the budget to do it. I don't have, I need to try to figure a way to do my CRM. And it's just now we're getting in stride where it's like, man, I'd be a real hypocrite if I'm trying to tell people, hey, let me do your purchasing, but I'm trying to do my own marketing. And so now we've tried to outsource all that stuff because again,
Hmm.
there are people that are experts, right? That's what they do. I'm not a marketer, you know.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
a
I
sales guy,
appreciate that.
and so it's like I want people to understand that this is something we live and breathe. Um, it did take us a while to get there, but that was more of a cash flow type of thing than anything else. But
Well, I agree with that. You don't want to be you don't want to do things you're not good at, especially when it's vital to the success of the business. So I would ask you over the 9 years that you've been doing this, and obviously you've had your ebb and flow, you've started, now you are where you are. What
yep.
are the bigger challenges that you face that you believe a client or anybody that's starting out should know before they get there, right? So if we can tell them the challenge is coming, this is how you should address it. What would be that challenge that you've experienced that you think would be worthwhile to talk about?
I would think perfect example, marketing, right? Everything we've done has been word of mouth, referral based, just strictly cold calling. And, we're getting to a point in time where there's so much cold outreach. And, I'm victim of analysis paralysis. So I'm looking at all these people, all
Hmm.
this type of thing. And then I end up selling one of my buddies on, a marketing scheme. And he goes to me, he goes, Dan, you know what? I got to do it. I might as well just do it. I'm like, what do you mean? Brad, I actually just introduced you to him the other day. I'm
Yeah.
like, what do you mean? He goes, I'm eventually going to have to spend the money, right? If I'm waiting for the time to get the perfect solution, I'm never going to spend the money and I'm never going to get the result. And so that was wisdom that was bestowed upon me. And I ended up just pulling the trigger. I got this marketing firm name I won't mention, but it was the classic overpromise on the deliver. I'm talking to the sales rep. He's like, hey, we're going to get you 5 to 25 leads a month. I'm like, oh, great. It's like, even if it's 5, I'm satisfied. And then once the credit card is processed and I meet with the account executive, she's like, well, what are your expectations? I said, well, the sales guy said 5 to 25 meetings a month, and her eyes were like, Wile E. Coyote. Like I was like, oh, okay. Well, what are we working with here? She's like, oh, you'll probably get 0 in the first 2 months, and then maybe 2 or 3. So at that point, there was a little bit of dissatisfaction. But the reality is, I've now gotten accustomed to spending money for marketing that previously I'd never spent a penny on marketing. And
Mhm.
so I got over the hump. So I think for other business owners, you can't be afraid to spend money to make money. I know that sounds like so cliche, but it's like the sooner you do it, the sooner you're going to get toward a result, which for me is lead gen. Um,
Yeah.
I have a huge total addressable market, right? Who wants to save? Everyone's hand going
Yeah.
up. But
Yeah.
who's willing to pay a percentage of savings? And that's where you kind of find a huge divide, and that's okay. Even I had a client the other day, a prospective client that was referred to me. We did everything we could. We stayed on top of them. We sent them emails, sent them an email. Hey, based on our information, the contracts we sent over, you should have about 7 months. And they're like, oh, we upgraded last December. And in my head, I'm like, man, you know, that stinks because they wasted about $100,000. But that's not a no, it's not a loss. It's just a delayed satisfaction because I'm going to be able to go to
Yeah.
them in 4 years. Uh, but I have to do a better job of following up.
Okay, and that's good. But I love the idea of the attitude of it's delayed satisfaction. It's not a lost sale because it's
No,
just a matter of when you get a chance to help them, right? And for both of us, like you said, who needs help running their business? Everybody should raise their hand, but not everybody wants
sure.
to, right? Eventually, people are come around and say, "Yeah, I need help." Okay, it's delayed. I would rather have helped you right now, but in 6 months, sure, let's have a conversation. My whole goal is get people the help they need it and when they're ready for it. That's the one challenge, right? Not too many people are ready for it. Now, I would imagine in your world, people are always ready for savings, but they're not ready for the change in their mindset towards themselves and their contribution to a business to accept the help from somebody else to save money. I think that is a little bit of a
Yeah.
rub for you, right?
Yeah,
But
I mean, I'd imagine you wouldn't be surprised how many people we have a conversation about savings and they've been doing the same thing for 20 years. And suddenly our conversation is going to give them the keys to,
yeah,
right the ship. And I'm like, that's fine. Again, we have plenty of bandwidth. It's not like we're at a point where we're turning people away. But if a conversation is all it takes for you to rekindle or figure out, hey man, maybe there's better ways to do this, that's fine. I just think, our value proposition, I think, is strong enough where it's like, let us, and we're not always the lead, right? We can either take lead or kind of sit, shotgun.
yeah,
If you want to like drive it, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, by all
And
means.
we try to help our people. I think our biggest clients, in the beginning, right? The genesis of it is let's do this. And then as we're going along the process, let's help you understand how to do this better. And once you're starting to, glean of how to do it better, people are just like, Dan, I'd rather just use you. Like, why? Like, why would I have to learn? I have to get into the weeds when they understand the value proposition. And more often than not, it's companies that are very lean on resources, right? I stick to a certain segment, specifically nonprofit, where they're lean. If you have 15 people in a purchasing department, I don't want to fight with you guys. I've
Yeah.
only had one company that has a procurement manager who's like, man, I love it. Everyone else is like, no, like that's what we're paid to do. Okay, I'm not here to fight with people. I want to help you.
Well, one of the things I wanted to point out because I think it's a vital part of what you do to engage with and get people comfortable with what you do. And it's a level of education, right? It's not that you're stealing somebody's job. It's not that you're taking over somebody's job. You don't even have any interest in doing their job. You just want to do the job you've been hired to do to save the organization money and therefore give them back the hours and bandwidth that they can do something else with.
Mhm.
I think the educational part is vital. And what I would suggest to every business owner, leader that's listening to this, education of your value is one of the hardest things to do if you're not prepared to have that conversation. And what I mean by that is we are so eager to vomit all the great, wonderful things we do, but we fail sometimes to educate our clientele on why we do what we do and how that impacts them to cut through the stone wall of I don't want to be bothered. This isn't for me. I'm not buying anything today. it's got to be a better way of educating people on process, value, and outcomes towards performance that allows people to realize, okay, yeah, that's actually a smarter way to doing this. I never thought of it that way. So education is a big part of what we do as a business, right? For any business, really. But I love the idea of tying that into, all right, a good lesson is make sure you educate your clients first before you sell them. I think that makes it a lot easier to have them make a buying decision.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Perfect. Well, I love it. I believe it or not, we've been here 30 minutes. I have a final question for you.
Yeah,
I'm
let's
gonna
hear it.
drop you into a time machine and send you back to where you find an 18-year-old Dan. I'm gonna sit you two on a park bench. What's that conversation sound like?
18-year-old Dan sitting on a park bench.
The two of
Okay,
you chatting.
18 years old. I'm at Rutgers. I'm not happy. Um, let's see. You know, it's funny you should say that. I'm not sure what that conversation was like. I didn't have a lot of any like self-doubt or anything.
Yeah.
I come from a big immigrant family, from Italy. My parents did everything they could for us. I just, and my belief at that time was like, just keep your head to the grindstone. That's kind of like my father told me. It'll
Mhm.
work out. It'll work out. I found myself being from New Jersey, and somehow I found myself getting a benefactor gave me $160,000 to go to any private school in the country, and she remains anonymous to this day. So if you see this, thank you.
Yeah.
um,
Thank you.
and so I I think the conversation is like I wouldn't change anything. Like the way my life is right now, 18-year-old me was like, you got to be rich, you got to be
Mhm.
wealthy, right? Like that's what's important. And I've got four kids and a fifth on the way. Money is, that's the least as far as valuable currency in my world. Like none of that matters. I mean, it matters to some extent, right? But
Oh, yeah.
I think the age-old wisdom, that's bestowed upon us by everyone that's older is spend more time with your kids, right? Don't work those late nights. And I've seen time and time again, people are like, man, they'll regret that. And
Mhm.
I've taken that by the horns. I'm not the guy, right? One of my mentors and now a friend of mine, he wanted to help me because he saw me at the pool on a Tuesday at 3. And he's like, what do you do? I said, I have an IT consulting procurement company. And he's like, hey, can I help you? And he's owned 20 businesses. I'm like, yeah, how would you like to help me? And he's like, I just want to introduce you to other businesses. This is when I first got to Ohio. And the Northeasterners be like, this guy's going to want some money because that's how Northeasterners are, wet your
Yeah.
beak. And so he starts, creating a scenario where he's introducing me to 20 companies at a time. And I'm like, hey, I pulled him aside. I'm like, what do you want? Like, just so we could get ahead of this. And he goes to me, he's like, I just want to see you at the pool on Tuesday at 3 o'clock with your kids. And I was like, wow,
That's
like, how about that? So 18-year-old
that's
year old
outstanding.
me, the conversation's not going to be anything great. So be like, just keep up at it. We figured it out. I went from Rutgers where I was dissatisfied. I transferred to Ohio State with my best friend. Things were great. Came out opportunity. Things happen for a reason.
Yeah, no, I,
You know,
I appreciate the walk down memory lane there. And
yeah,
quite frankly, how amazing is it to have somebody look after you and see you be successful? And on the other side of it, now you get a chance to turn around and do it for somebody else, which is really cool.
yeah. I mean, I never thought the day would come. I mean, my father's like, one day you're gonna do the same thing for someone. I'm like, whoa, okay, great. Yeah. But we have enough to tend to with the 5 kids. But if there's ever abundance, I'm glad to help. I mean, our whole premise is helping people.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a shepherd's type of way. So if there's an opportunity to help, we're here. I wish I had a better story for that 18-year-old self. I think, you know,
Oh, that's a phenomenal
yeah,
18-year-old story. Is just recognizing yourself, your self-worth, and when you're not happy, get yourself out of that situation and find
yeah,
happiness. And then
it worked out.
when you find somebody willing to help you, take the help. You're fine.
Oh,
You're gonna be just
that's
fine.
actually really undervalued advice. Like, don't be afraid to ask for help either. That's another thing. It's like
Yeah.
you'd be shocked just asking for help how receptive people are. When's the last time you asked someone, hey, do you mind? And they're
Hmm.
like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah,
I think innately people want to help. It makes them feel better about themselves.
I
And
think you
so
nailed it right there.
if you're able to pose it in a way where they can see the value that they're bringing to themselves or how it elevates them, you're that's a winning solution, winning
I would
scenario.
agree. It makes a world of difference, both for them, for the person they're helping, and their own self-worth and gratitude back to the universe. I think people really appreciate being helpful. So,
I
great
agree.
story. Yeah. Dan, thank you so much for being on the program. This was awesome.
Of course.
All the
Thanks for
information to
having
get
me.
in touch with Dan will be down below. We'll see everybody on the next episode of the business or the Legacy Leaders. Bye now.